I guess we're just gonna roll into the impressions of the game at this point, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah.
Yeah, like, so I really fucking loved it. Like, I didn't...
It was great.
I wasn't expecting... Because I feel like we talked about this last time. I was not excited when I first saw the trailer, like the first reveal for this game.
Yeah, we mentioned that last week.
Yeah, like... And I think from there, it was just the slow building of like, okay, well, Sword Dog. Like, yeah, Sword Dog was the confirmation that I will not skip this game. Like, I'm going to get this game. And then everything else was just a matter of like, okay, well, I know I'm going to get it. I'm not really going to pay attention to the news about it. Like, I'm not going to pay attention to the news in general, but also the news. In regards
Fuck
to
Pokemon, I'm turning off the news.
I don't care if he gets impeached. I just, whatever.
I don't want to even accidentally hear about this Sword and Shield nonsense. Game Freak lied.
God, that'd be crazy if fucking Trump just tweeted Game Freak lied.
Yo.
Like, the cultural impact that would have, for good or worse, I don't know, but the world would be different after that. Like, much more different.
Bigger deal? Him tweeting hashtag Game Freak lied or him tweeting hashtag release the Snyder Cut?
God, I don't know.
I don't know which fan base would be more mobilized from that.
I feel like I'm okay. Back to the games.
I don't want to open that can.
Yeah, that's gonna be a whole. I don't know. Like the fact that I didn't know, like I saw like a trailer or two about like, oh, here's some new Pokemon here, like some new mechanics essentially. But being able to just like be surprised, like being able to get jumped in the tall grass by just a random, like Grimmsnarl, the evolution of Impidimp, like the really big goblin looking guy, did not know he was in the game. And then, so I saw an Impidimp in the wild and I was like, fuck this thing, and skipped it. And I saw on Twitter, like, someone evolved a Grimmsnarl and was like, oh, this is going to be, like, I immediately was like, okay, you are going to be my point. Like, you are now everything I need to find you. And I learned, oh, it's an Impidimp, whatever. I need to go back and find the Impidimp. I tweeted, like, I retweeted the video and I was just like, I need this. Someone please. Like, I forgot the actual tweet. And someone from the group chat hit me up and was like, yo, I have one. Mm-hmm. And like, one, it's just reinforcing like the social aspect of it. Cause I mean, one, being blind to it, like it was in my game. I could have easily gone back to whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's rekindling that, like I feel like I'm playing Pokemon for the first time again almost. And it might just be because I played Sun and Moon, but not Ultra Sun and Moon, whatever it was called. Right. Yeah. So I feel like I've taken like a really long break. And also Pokemon Let's Go was a huge letdown for me. So like I just feel like the last few releases haven't really like drawn me in as much. And now I'm just like I'm back on the subreddit. Like I am trying to find like the Max IV Dittos. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Let's Go because I didn't play them. And I also didn't play Ultra Sun and Moon, and I barely played Sun and Moon. Like I didn't. Like, compared to other Pokemon games, I played very little of those games, and this will all be, factoring into the list later. But sticking with Sword and Shield for now, like, that Let's Go, those features from Let's Go, and I'm sure a lot from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, that made their way into Sword and Shield were honestly some of the biggest surprises for me, and the quality of life improvements that came with a lot of that and a lot of the new stuff. Has just been, we talked about this last week, the games feel easier now, but not necessarily in the sense of like there isn't a challenge. It's just that there's less it's less time consuming, the challenge.
It's less tedious.
The challenge is there, but it's not tedious, exactly. Yeah. And I think the way wild Pokemon now work, which is just that they're roaming around and you don't necessarily have random encounters unless you happen to be running, and when there's like moving grass and you can't see what the Pokemon is, that can occasionally happen right in front of you as you're moving, but it's not that common. Like I like being able to maneuver around Pokemon I don't want to battle, or maneuver directly towards a Pokemon I know I need to catch. Yeah. It makes it easier to grind for a certain Pokemon. If let's say I'm trying to train a flying type Pokemon, I can go into a route and look at all the grass types and just walk straight towards them. So I'm just taking out grass Pokemon like that.
Like a psychopath.
Exactly. Just roaming through and just, bunch of KO'd Maractuses.
Just throwing plastic straws at all of them.
But I thought that was great, and it didn't really hit me. It was in the wild area in the trailers, but I hadn't been keeping up with any of that. Again, I didn't play Let's Go, so when I actually got into the game and you get to the first route and there's just a bunch of Wooloos, little sheep, just roaming around, I was like, is this going to be what it's like the whole game?
Yeah.
And on the second and third route, I was like, holy crap, this is like a major difference. Like, this is a huge gameplay change to remove random encounters that, like, I guess I was just late to because I was shocked no one was talking about it, or at least no one in my sphere. And that's one of my favorite things about this new game is how you go about battling, and like the route structure is so much better, I think, because of that. I also mentioned last week it felt like some of the routes were a little light on trainers. I still, after playing it, felt that way, except for a few of the bigger routes, which kind of require you to sort of find the trainers, because there's one towards the end of the game right before the Dark Gym that I still need to go back and battle all the trainers there, because once I realized how much was there and how much damage my team had taken, I was just like, screw this, I just want to get to the next gym. So I just skated through it. But yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of improvement on just sort of the minute-to-minute gameplay, which I really liked. And my issues with this game are minimal and mostly come from, like, things that are different, and my issue with them being just the fact that they're different, if that makes sense. You know,
like what?
Well, I appreciate the story. Because I like its heavy emphasis on the gym challenge and everything.
Yeah.
And the fact that they still had, like, an evil team. Like, I don't mind Team Yell just being the, like, fans of the dark type gym leader and Marnie, the rival. And I don't mind the champion, or the chairman of the league being the villain.
Chairman Rose.
But those two things were completely disconnected. So it felt like when you finished the Team Yell stuff, like before you even have taken out all the gyms, because it's like the 7th gym, then not randomly because they sort of tease it, but like more or less out of nowhere, this other plot thing starts like going into full gear, like right when you think you're about to finish the game. Part of this could also be the fact that I had beaten all the gyms and I was like, it's midnight, I'll stay up till 2 to finish the game. And then at 3 I had finally beaten captured the legendary and still hadn't defeated the champion because there was all this other stuff I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And it made up for the fact that there was no
it was just drawn out. Not only was it jarring, it was like, hey, so we're not only going to, like, because I'm pretty sure they stop you literally as you're walking out onto the field. It's like, I remember being like, okay, so, like, usually there's the legendary beat, like, before I get to the champion, but, like, I'm here, like, I'm in the stadium, so I guess we're not doing that. And then they fucking pull you out of the stadium, and there's just this long slog of, like, bullshit dialogue that's introducing things to you that have not been introduced before, and then a bunch of boring battles that, like, after you'd, gone through the gauntlet of the other gym leader. And also I think the reorganizing of, like, instead of there being just a separate Elite Four, it's just, no, it's going to be a tournament of all the gym leaders. That
was cool.
Yeah, I really like that. And I'm sorry to, like, completely cut you off.
Oh no, it's fine.
Just, it felt like, like, not only was it jarring, like, I would be okay if it was like a crazy twist at the end and blah 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 blah. Like, sure, it's unearned, but at least it's fun. In this case, no, it's unearned. The only
surprise came from the fact that it happened like when it did. Like, I wasn't shocked when I realized, the chairman's the bad guy and his, like, assistant is also a bad person. But even then, like, the whole build-up in that last, like, ending bit where you're fighting all the employees of the like all the different Pokemon League, like, people. Not the gym trainers, but you know what I mean.
Like I forgot the corporation's name.
As you're fighting your way up the tower.
Yeah, it's like MC something. Yeah, MC Technology, like, or something. I don't know.
Literally the only reason they're fighting you is because their boss, who's like the chairman's assistant, is like, he can't be disturbed right now. They're not actually involved in it. Yeah. Like, they don't have, they're not bad people. Even the assistant person is not a bad person. They're just like...
They're just at work.
they're just at work, and she's like a slightly obsessive assistant who's like, no, you can't. He's working right now. You can't interrupt him. But like, she doesn't actually have any stake in the situation or motivation besides that. And so the fact that Team Yell is separate, the fact that her and their whole involvement in the thing is sort of disconnected, made me not really give a shit when it came down to the final, like, oh no, we gotta save the world from this legendary.
Yeah, I was just like, fuck the world.
Yeah, like I felt like they had some cool mystery going the whole time with Sonya and uncovering the mystery of, you know, the champion and the Sword and Shield legendary Pokemon. But none of that stuff came together, and it made me appreciate, like, this game. I appreciated the A plot of this game a lot more than I have other Pokemon games in terms of just like, I am dedicated to being the champion. It is a huge focus of the game. Everyone around me, like the fact that when you like beat a gym, there's like just citizens of the town just waiting outside the gym being like, nice job, like go on, get your next badge. Like, that shit is awesome. But like, whereas other Pokemon games maybe downplayed the gyms and like had these other plots that were hit or miss, at least they had like a through line that was able to do all the beats, and then like the gyms were sort of on the side. Like, this one felt like, okay, we've made the gyms important, but we still need to have you catch a legendary at the end and have some sort of villain, so we're just gonna shoehorn that in. It didn't, it was just, it didn't, that part didn't mesh. But
I really want,
in the end, the good still sort of outweighed the bad of that. But
I really want you to finish because I just want someone else to talk about it. Like, all of the complaints that you just raised, I feel like if they had just taken, like I said, like the last 2 hours of the post game and just spread it throughout the rest of the game, like just pepper it in enough to like one supplement, like, because I agree, I love the gym challenges. I cannot name all of the gym leaders off the top of my head, but now I feel compelled to learn the gym leaders. Like, I know Milo, Nessa, BD, actually, shit.
BD, yeah.
Yeah. Also... Opal. Yeah, Opal. I thought the like rivals were actually pretty good. I keep seeing a bunch of Twitter hate for Hop.
I liked Hop. I just thought he was kind of like, he actually had some development, even though it happened really quick and got resolved pretty immediately.
And then more development after the post game. Go ahead.
But I felt like rival wise, and we can get back more into this when we compare when we rank all of them. I felt like the rivals were good. But like, Hop was set up from the beginning to be like your rival. Like, most of the games, like even the ones that have multiple rivals, have like the one main rival. Your Blue, your Barry from like Diamond and Pearl, May or Brandon, whatever in Gen 3. This one was like, that's Hop, and I was like, okay, he's just sort of a nice guy who wants to beat you, but not like, he's not going to be mean about it or whatever. So I was kind of like underwhelmed by that. I thought Marnie was really cool, but didn't get enough focus. And I didn't like BD at all, to be honest. I thought, especially considering he was just using like psychic type Pokemon the entire time. Like, once I realized that after the first battle, I was like, okay, so whenever I battle him, I just know to throw something in front of him that can sweep his psychic team, and then it's like not an issue. So like, Hop, who had like the most varied team, and it kept changing. That I really liked. How his team would change each time you battled him while he was like figuring stuff out. I liked how they incorporated that into his character development.
His Wooloo sucks. I hate his Wooloo so much.
But he stopped using it after a while. And then but he was like the biggest actual challenge. Whereas I felt like the others were kind of like, I knew how to defeat them, even though I felt like, you know, they were more interesting to the actual story. Again, it's like the main story of just beating the gyms, becoming the best, having your rival Hop, having the gym, like, you know, Dynamax stuff kind of like play into it was all cool. It was just all the other story stuff that they had like on the side, I felt like didn't really come together well. But it wasn't like enough for me to dislike the story as a whole. And I feel like I've been going on about that for a while, so we can move into some other stuff if you want.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree with pretty much everything. Like, I personally liked BD. Like, when, or not liked, but like whenever he came on screen, I was like, yo, fuck that guy. And I feel like that was the point. So like once I realized, oh, okay, like I didn't know if he was actually going to show up. Like, as often as I thought he was initially, because I was like, yo, if this dude keeps interrupting and just being a dick, I'm not going to enjoy this game. But like his development of just like, okay, fine, I'll like not even giving it, just accepting the offer to become the fairy type gym leader. Like I thought that was cool. And you know, I genuinely do want to have like just a longer discussion about like the post game, because it's been like it has been really bugging me. like I don't want to get like keep harping on it, especially since like we've been like relatively spoiler free. It's not like Pokemon spoilers are like a big deal, but you know,
we kind of talked a lot about the end of the game, but I hear what you're saying. We didn't get too specific. But I would consider this a spoiler discussion, so we can get into some more stuff. I definitely want to talk about, you know, because we mentioned when we were talking about Dexit and all that stuff that the game didn't necessarily look super great. That said, I feel like design-wise, like art design-wise, this was one of the best Pokemon games.
Yeah.
I think that the graphics weren't necessarily stellar or groundbreaking, but there was a lot of stuff that I had yet to see in a Pokemon game, and that really stood out to me.
Like the fifth gym was to me the standout. Like with the
fifth gym being in the Mushroom Town.
Yeah.
That whole route leading up to it, where you like tap the mushrooms and it like the light goes everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was great.
That was awesome.
Thought the area preceding that was really cool. There was a lot of like diversity and in terms of like biomes and whatnot throughout the game, which I think my favorite Pokemon generations typically have. I got a little annoyed when we got to when it was like the snowy area towards the end, because I find like in a lot of things I find snowy areas kind of boring, but that's just like a completely personal thing. But like different things like the 7th gym town, which was a cool surprise, like getting there and being like, what's going on here? And then you end up at the actual gym at the end. I thought that was really clever, the dark type gym. I also felt like there was some cool lighting I noticed when you were in that town that's kind of surprised me. And stuff like that I think really stood out when it was really good. And you know, not to go back into the Dexit stuff too much, but like all the fans complaining that it wasn't actually that graphically like improved from the 3DS games and stuff, like you have to realize that this game looks good on the TV. It doesn't look again like as good as something like Breath of the Wild or even like Skyrim on the Switch does, but it's a different kind of good, you know? Like
I think it looks better than Skyrim on the Switch. Like I think
in a different way. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But when you blow this game up to the big screen, which you can play it on a full TV, it still looks just as good as it does on the handheld, if not better. And the fact is, if you took the 3DS games and put them on a TV screen, they would not look as good. Like there's a lot more pixelation, there's a lot less detail in certain things, and that's fine because they worked for those systems, but like this game was designed to be played as a handheld and as a console game, and while it doesn't quite reach like the full console Pokemon that everyone has been wanting since they were 10 years old, like this is, I think, a good step towards that direction that I don't think people are giving enough credit for. Like the fact that when you're standing in a town or even on a route, there's so much in the background that's like got detail and is appealing. Like even the fact that when you're approaching the Pokemon lab for the first time, you can like see it in the distance. Like those were little details that I don't think any other Pokemon game has done before, and I thought it was really impressive here.
I mean, I think it's just, I mean, when speaking about Dexit specifically, I feel like most of the, in my opinion, like the legitimate outrage is more about like the national Dex, and like we can talk about that.
Right.
If you want,
I mean,
but,
I guess that's specifically Dexit versus just like the Game Freak Live movement.
I'm fine with. I mean, I guess we should just call it Game Freak Live. I was about to say I'm fine with calling Dexit like just the catch-all for the general boycott for these games, but like in terms of the graphics, like I was like, one of the reasons I was initially upset at the reveal was because I was like, oh, this just looks like more Sun and Moon. And I wanted more of like a really big jump in graphical fidelity. Just, I mean, in terms of like general art style, like we keep saying like, oh, well, it's not Breath of the Wild and it shouldn't have to be Breath of the Wild. But like, I understand why fans would want like Breath of the Wild. Like if it is like, like let's be real, like this is probably going to be the closest thing to like Nintendo's last handheld, because like it's like they're going to keep iterating off of this like they did the 3D. Like they won't need to make,
it's going to be both. They're not going to make a dedicated handheld anymore.
Exactly. So like I mean, the 3DS Lite exists, but you know what I'm trying to say. The whole.
But that's the like, 3DS Lite or the Switch Lite.
Switch Lite. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, good looks. But like, we are going to need to hit some point of like big jump for us to, unless it's going to keep being the slow iteration, which it is fine. Like if you jump back from, you know, Pokemon Gen 1 to Pokemon Gen 8, obviously fucking massive differences just in quality, like quality, just in general gameplay. Like the entire game is just, we're going to get into the overall rankings or whatever. I'm just like, old game, old type shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're making a good point here, because if you look back through all the Pokemon generations, I would say there are two big graphical jumps, and that would be from 2 to 3, because 1 and 2 like had a lot of similar sprites, and even though they added more color because it was on the Game Boy Color for Gold and Silver, it still wasn't. It was still like same general art design and everything. And then 3, like really like the sprites were massively improved. And then, you know, 4 and 5 added some 3D elements, but I think it was that jump to 3 that was really like the big one. And then I would say 5 to 6, because you had the jump to 3D, and then 6 and 7 were pretty much the same with some improvements. And then, like you were saying, this does sort of just look like an improved version of Sun and Moon, and I think that's fair. So I can understand people who are expecting, like, all right, we're getting our first technically console main series Pokemon game. I would like to see it be another big jump, like the other two I mentioned. And I mean,
it's also comparing it to it's comparing it to modern games. Like to me, it's, if you want to compare it to other Pokemon games, then to me it's just, objectively, like Sword and Shield are the best looking, just objectively. You can't really argue with that. For you to complain about graphics for a Pokemon game, like what's wrong with you? But like the game I keep seeing it compared to the most right now is Dragon Quest XI, in terms of like the roster of like moves that just are saved within the game, and then the amount of enemies within the game, and then the amount of animations that you have to interact with all that, and then just the environments and like I haven't bought Dragon Quest XI for the Switch yet. I've played, I think, through all the demo. I'm pretty sure that's why I stopped playing it. And it's fucking awesome. Go Dragon Quest XI. But like that game looks fantastic. Like in handheld on the TV looks fantastic. And then if I were to go from Dragon Quest to the Switch, like I would feel like I was not cheated, but like I feel like I shouldn't have paid $60 for this. Like if it didn't have the Pokemon name brand, it's like the same way that Breath of the. I love the argument of whether or not Breath of the Wild would have been like an actual 7 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, like whether the Zelda name was on it, like if it was just some random action adventure game. Because I think like the environmental mechanics and like the physics of that game are like really, really important for what people are doing now. Like we wouldn't have like a Death Stranding without Breath of the Wild, for better or worse. I still need to play that goddamn game. But I don't know. Like I get it. Like I fucking get it in terms of the graphics, and then I get it in terms of the national decks, because I saw something on Reddit where it was just like, I don't condone fucking death threats to developers, but also like I have like my Charizard from my red from my red, like from day one, like my fucking Charizard. Like I know that like you get a Charizard at the end of whatever game, Sword or Shield. Yeah. But it's not like my Charizard. I'm just imagining the people that like IV grant, like just this is my team. This has been my team, and then they can't carry that over. Like I get why that sucks.
Well, I don't think this is necessarily a defense, but I mean, people do seem to forget that this happened between Generation 2 and 3. Like, if you have a copy of Red, there is no way of getting those Pokemon to even Gen 3. Like, there was no transferring from Gen 1 and 2 to 3. That's why it was like a big deal when they remade Red and Blue as Fire Red and Leaf Green, and then also Pokemon Coliseum added a bunch of Johto Pokemon that you couldn't get otherwise and whatnot. Like, eventually you were able to get all the Pokemon in the national decks, but it was a similar thing where there was a bunch that were inaccessible because there was no connectivity between the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. If I'm wrong about that, like, someone can tweet at me, but I'm like, I remember that pretty distinctly, is that was a big issue people had. It was almost treated as like a reboot in that way.
I mean, my thing is, even with that, once the Pokemon Bank is established,
Right.
and you release a Pokemon game, like, and you release all subsequent Pokemon games with, the use of Pokemon Bank. Like, I don't remember exactly. I don't know. Like the example of this is my Charizard from whenever, like whatever game.
Well, in the same way, you can get a Charizard. You can play Red and Blue on like the 3DS and transfer those Pokemon to Pokemon Bank. So they found a way to make it to where you can transfer Pokemon from Red and Blue to the newer games. Just they did it via re-releases. It's not like you can have your childhood copy of Blue. That's just the point I was making. But even then, that wasn't like... I just wanted to establish that because I don't think people are recognizing that enough in terms of like there is precedent for this. I don't think that's a defense or one way or the other. I just like... I think it's worth thinking about that this has happened before, especially because I think the whole National Dex thing wouldn't be as big of an issue if Pokemon had decided to take a stand like they're taking now a bit earlier. I've thought for a couple generations now that they should stop adding new Pokemon or at least only add like 20 and like just refine what they have already instead of like building to this impossible feat of having like nearly 1,000 Pokemon fully animated, both in overworld sprites and like, again, because this goes back
balancing
to the whole,
all that
like,
too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a balancing issue too. And like, this is why I feel like the whole Game Freak Live thing is a little disingenuous because it's not really giving credit to the fact that like, not only is every Pokemon like in the overworld fully animated in that way. I mean, maybe not battle animations, but in that way, but also like Pokemon Camp. You can literally, every Pokemon you can have in the game is fully animated with a bunch of different animations in that environment too. So there's like all these different things where I can imagine that's damn near like not impossible, but it just would have taken so long and so much resources to do for all 890 Pokemon that there are now. So I've felt like for a while they should start dialing back the new Pokemon, refine what they have, focus on different things, and maybe eventually get to that, again, like 10-year-old dream of having like the ultimate console game that has every Pokemon in every region and all these different things.
God.
Now they've made that, that has been impossible for several generations now. There's no way we're going to get a game where you can go to Galar, Kalos, and Kanto in the same game.
So my thing...
But,
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just... lost my train of thought.
Having a game where you can go to all of the regions.
But anyway, just with the I feel like they should have stopped a while ago, and now that they finally decided this is the game where we're going to take our stand and not include all the Pokemon, it's like it feels weird to me. And as a fan, I wish that they would have done something where they were like, okay, this is the last game where we're going to have all the Pokemon. So like, or this is the last game where we're gonna add new Pokemon, so that way you can enjoy that game for what it is in the same way you enjoy all the previous games. But then going forward, rather than it being like this bomb that they dropped on everyone. And like I was pissed when I first found out about the fact that the National Dex was like cut in half or whatever. Like that for a little bit was gonna be why I didn't buy these games, and I ended up getting over it. Because part of it I feel like if you go back and play Diamond and Pearl now, you don't have all the Pokemon. Like, I mean, it's like that you can still enjoy a Pokemon game with only half the Pokemon like that. Yeah. I think like clearly we liked Sword and Shield, but just had they strategized this a bit better, I don't think it would have been an issue. I think this was something that has been a long time coming, and we just have to accept now. They didn't handle it great, but I don't think I think it's a problem that was inevitable. I don't think Game Freak created this problem or like, is trying to cut corners or anything like that, Like, I mean, Game Freak created the problem in terms of like over the years, like but I mean, like in the sense of they were giving fans what they wanted until they couldn't anymore. And I feel like that isn't necessarily like their fault in the sense of like they suddenly decided now we're not going to give you what you wanted because we want to cut corners on this game. I think it was more just like, shit, what are we going to do now? Because this is getting harder and harder and, more less and less cost effective. Like, I mean, I think, all right, I guess we have to do this. It'll piss off some fans, but they'll get over it.
I don't think it's a matter of money because it's not a matter of money. Like, I don't know their fucking numbers or whatever, but I can say if Pokemon is going broke, then we're all fucked. I'm just going to say that.
Well, but cost effective in the sense of like also in terms of labor and time.
No, I was going to say
because they put these games out like every 3 years, every 2 years.
Literally, I was going to say it's more a matter of timing than I think it is of money because they have to like the new show is starting. If they delay this goddamn game to like Doom getting delayed until March or whatever it's coming out, like hi Chase, like Doom getting delayed is not going to really disrupt like Doom as an IP or as a brand, because like it's gonna fuck Stadia's launch, but like it's it's Doom. You're just gonna have to wait for the Doom game, and then you can play the Doom game because it's just a game. And like with Pokemon, it's so we've got the new line of shirts, and because also I've seen them like try to push more like Pokemon clothing, like just casual clothing with like just little Pokemon, and it looks good. So I am like, I'm ready to see
I have a lot of Pokemon shirts.
But like they have the new line of clothing, they have the new line of toys, they have the new line of cards, they have the new show, they have all this. If Game Freak came out and said, hey, we want to make the best game like to Nintendo, like we want to make the best game possible for our fans, we want to delay it to March. No, like they can't just delay everything. Like they can't delay the world like for I don't know. It's hard to. In my head, I was like, well, maybe, because sometimes they'll have like two games being developed at once. I mean, not just like a Sword and Shield, but like another one, like
the remakes or whatever.
Yeah, like a Let's Go or like the remakes. Yeah. Maybe instead of the remakes, like they have some kind of like the Smash Ultimate for fucking Pokemon, where we're not gonna create anything new, and right now we're just gonna start with Gens 1, 2, and 3. Here is, Pokemon World or whatever the fuck.
I mean, you're kind of describing Pokemon Go in a way, because they just like launched like we're just going to be the original 151, and then everything just kind of got added over time.
I mean, but like
different kinds of game, granted, but still.
Like with the gyms and now I'm sounding like I'm describing Pokemon Go still, but like with the story and the like games as service, but for Pokemon essentially. Like super, like give me reasons to keep coming back to like the actual Pokemon game. And I keep describing Pokemon Go. Like on principle, I'm not a fan of like the mobile game market feeding into the business practices of like just games market, like the AAA games market or whatever, because that's microtransactions and all that sad stuff. But I'd be totally okay if Pokemon went live service. Like,
well, it could be done in a way that didn't like, hinder. Like if they started charging like $10 for 100 Pokemon to be added to your game, that'd be shitty. But like,
for not just 100 Pokemon and then a new region for $10.
Well, that'd be different. I mean, but if we're talking about like the whole Dexit thing didn't matter to me because I felt one of two things was going to happen. One, they were just going to kind of over time add the Pokemon the way they did in Gen 3 via a Diamond and Pearl remakes or some sort of like supplementary game like Pokemon Lance, whatever the natural follow-up to Sword and Shield would be. Like Emerald or whatever, Pokemon Axe,
Gun.
Pokemon Armor, I don't know. Pokemon Catapult. But
Pokemon Trebuchet.
Like, I was thinking that they were going to do that, or just like stick to their guns and like make this the best balanced, most like well refined Pokemon game because they were taking out the things. And it seemed like in a lot of ways they went with the latter. Like this game feels more balanced. It feels more manageable because there's a lot less Pokemon. It still bothers me. There's going to be a certain point where I'm going to be like, well, I can't have this ultimate team that I want to make of like my favorite Pokemon because half of them aren't in the game. I mean, the fact that like Bulbasaur is not even in the game is a little heinous, but like, I think I'd rather they, did one or the other, and it feels to me like they're not trying to, I don't know. We've kind of covered a lot with this. I don't want to go too far into it, but I don't know. I've just felt like it's a little disingenuous to criticize what is largely just a design choice. It's not, it's not a lack of effort or something like that. I mean, and like you said, because they can't really even delay it if they wanted to. So
like it wouldn't even be like a design choice. It's just a design necessity. Like it's
necessity. Yeah.
Like you can't. Like no amount of crunch is gonna. Like it's just physically impossible. It sounds almost like I have no idea how much actual work goes into. Like I'm assuming this is like not an easy job to put together a good Pokemon game every year. So like, like I can't, and I already know that like with the fucking death threats coming from these crazy fans, like, or I don't even know if you should call them fans anymore. Like, just
I think if you're sending death threats to the creators of
Yeah.
the thing you love, you don't really get to call yourself a fan.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there.
no, like I 100% agree
Controversial
with
opinion, but
that. Start the holiday hot takes early. No, I don't know. Like, I'm enjoying the game. Like, I sympathize with the people that really do get upset, like, about, because I don't know. Like, yeah, like if I walk into a town. And especially if I'm online, like if I'm in the wild area or whatever, having a Steelix spawn on me is fucking dumb. Having 3 people just like appear right in front of me is like jarring. But also, for every time that happens, a Pokemon runs out of the tall grass and chases me, and I think that's fucking hilarious. Like,
yeah, or like you enter a new area where like, you know, a bunch of different graphical elements that are completely unique to that area come in, and it's like, oh damn, they actually put like, you know, maybe it wasn't hours and hours, the same amount of work in terms of like spending hours and hours and hours of coding like all these little things in there, like the different Pokemon and getting it all like in there. But there was more thought put into it creatively of like, how can we make the actual, you know, that, like I was saying before, I think the moment to moment gameplay is vastly improved in this game over
completely
a lot
agree.
of the other ones.
I completely agree.